guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make this cute little beekeeper gnome. If you want to know how to make him, stick around. I'll show you how. And if you want to see future videos like this, hit subscribe. And if you want to stick around and watch how to make the little accessories for this beekeeper gnome, watch the video that follows. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, for this gnome, you're going to need a pattern, and I have it down in the description below. It's in an SVG file. You can cut it with a Cricut, or if you want to cut it by hand, I have a PDF for you as well. You need some fabric for the body. You're going to need some craft foam, a couple sticks for his legs, some fabric for the top part of his hat, a pool noodle. I cut mine at 5 inches in length. Some bees to decorate his hat. You're going to need one of these bendable rollers. Hair rollers, some netting, some faux fur, a pair of tennis shoes, 4 corks, and you need to go ahead and drill a hole through the middle of these, and a flower. All right, let's get started. Okay, first thing you need to do is you need to go ahead and cut out your pattern pieces. I cut all these out of chipboard. I cut these white ones out of the foam. Notice that one of them is a little bit bigger in the center than the other one, so you need to know that when we get ready to do our hat. That's the top part of our hat. You need some trim pieces, some tape. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start by opening up our top of our hat. Just bend all those little tabs back. And then we're going to take the brim of our hat, stick it in there so we can get our size right. Once you figure out exactly what size it is, because you want it to be flush, we're going to go ahead and start taping that off. Just tape it flush to it. We're going to use a lot of tape on this part here, but you're not going to see it once we get it covered up with all the stuff. Go ahead and put a piece of tape all the way around the outside of it, just to hold those little triangular pieces onto it. And tape it up really good. You can add more tape if you want. You don't have to add so much. To go ahead and trim off the little points of the bottom part of the hat so that they're flush. Then we're going to go ahead and start building our cap part. We're just going to put a little glue on each end of this and then just dome over the top of the hat. And we're going to use 4 of these to do it. We're going to kind of space them out a little bit, diagonal from each other. Put a little glue on the top part there just to hold it in place, because you want it to stay in place. And then these other 2, we're just going to go across the other side of these, and this is going to create the dome part of our hat. Alright, once you got all that built, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the trim again and put it around there just to hold all of those pieces of paper in there. I'm not using a real thick chipboard, but it's the Silhouette brand is what I bought. And it's plenty thick enough, and it cuts well with the Cricut. Okay, once you get that done, then we're going to go ahead and tape it a little bit more. And then we're going to go ahead and build our hat top. You're just going to take a string. I took a little bit heavier thread than just regular sewing thread. And we're going to go ahead and stitch around about 1/4 inch stitches all the way around, because we're going to gather this up over the top part of the dome of the hat. I didn't tie the end of mine off. I just kind of being careful with it so it doesn't pull all the way through, and then I can just gather it up pretty quick and easy. It leaves me a little bit of string. Then pull it on up around there, put it over the dome part of the hat, and pull it all the way down on each side. And then when you get it all the way down on each side, we're going to tie that string off. And tie it pretty tight. We're going to come back in here and we're going to glue it all the way around, just underneath the lip all the way around, just in case that string were to pop open. We're set with it glued in. Just lift up a little bit and then just push it down onto that glue. And you're going to do it all the way around every section. Don't skip on the glue on this part. This is a pretty important part. And then just kind of shape it out there. Okay, then we're going to take our other circle, put it on the bottom here just to give it a little bit of extra support. Line those up and then just glue that down. Okay, then we're going to take the circle that has the bigger of the hole in the center, and we are going to pull it around the top part of this hat. We're going to leave a little bit of a lip, and I'm going to show you here in a minute. So don't go all the way down. We're going to have it come up the edge just a little bit, like that. And then we're going to go ahead and glue that down. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and take the trim for the top part of the hat, go around it, and we're going to glue it in. And you want to do a lot of glue on this because you want it to stay in place. Just press it down really, really good all the way around. Get plenty of glue on there. Hot glue works really, really good with this craft foam. It tends to stay together really, really well. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and take our netting, and on the long side, I just folded it in half, and we're going to start gluing that all the way around the edge of that top of that hat. And I know it looks like I'm burning my hands, but I'm not. But I did end up getting a little popsicle stick to kind of help me along, because I didn't want y'all to get burned either. We've all been burned with hot glue, I know. But just kind of take it and go around. It doesn't have to, you know, be perfect because we're going to be covering it up with the other white piece. Just get that net around. You could have probably gathered this up to do it a little bit easier, but I didn't think about that until after I finished with my hat. Just get it kind of tacked in there. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to cover it up with the other white piece, and then we are going to sandwich them together really, really well. Once you get it all the way around, figure out where you need it, then just go ahead and trim it off, but we do want to overlap these pieces. And I overlap mine probably at least 2 inches. Alright, then once you do that, and get that pushed down in there really, really good, then we're going to turn it out right inside out. Just move the netting to the opposite side because this is where we're going to glue our white piece on here. When you glue the white piece on, I just kind of got some glue in the middle, but then go around and kind of get it really close to the edge so that your edges are pretty flush together. We're going to trim them out here in a minute, but try to get them as flush, flattened as you can. So try to get some extra glue closer to the edges so we can get those flat. Then we're going to go ahead and turn it right side out towards the front, and then we're going to add a piece of trim around the edge where we put those 2 pieces of white fabric sandwiched between the netting. And this will just give it a nice trim. So you want to start in the back where your other seam was, and then just go around. And just, if you glue on the strip itself, you'll get less of a glue mess than if you tried to glue the edges. So I just went around and glued the strip and just kind of pull it a little bit as you're going. And we're going to get that glued around, and that'll give us a nice trimmed out hat. And the piece of foam that I used here is like 16 inches long by 3/8 inch wide. And I cut another one like that too, but you're going to actually need to cut 2 because I had to make some changes. I had to modify it after I got to a certain point. So you're going to need 2 more of those strips. And get that glued really, really good. Then we're going to add a flower to it. And then I'm going to add some little bees to it. And I just put a few on here at first, and then I went back and added a lot of them later. So I put my flower over that seam so it'd cover up that seam. And you get a whole bag of these little bees on Amazon for pretty cheap. I bought the ladybugs and the bees because I'm probably going to do a ladybug gnome later, and it was a good value. So just kind of randomly put them on there. And then I'm just going to set that hat aside. We're going to go ahead and build the body. I went ahead and cut out my pieces. I'm not giving you a pattern for these pieces, but I did put the measurements in the instructions below So we're going to use a pool noodle. We're going to go ahead and sew up the long side of this piece. Well, glue up that long side of that piece. And then we're going to glue up the side as well so we can trim it out and have a nice seam down the back of his shirt. This is going to be kind of like a jacket. It's going to be a little bit long. Then we're going to go ahead and just fold that over, put some glue along that edge, fold it over just to finish out that little tube. And then we're going to go ahead and put that tube inside of there, and we are going to leave enough room where it's probably about an inch below the noodle, and then I'm tied off. And then there's a hole in the top of the noodle, and I'm just going to stuff that fabric on in there because I need the top part of his head to be a little bit more flush when you put it in the hat, because that's how the pattern's set up. So it needs to be flat up there. Just make sure you leave enough room down at the bottom to cover up that noodle. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and build his legs. We're going to take 2 corks, and we're going to put them on a 1/4 inch stick that measures 4.5 inches in length. Just kind of play with them until you get them a little bit straight. Then we're going to sew up or hem up the bottom part of the short side and the long side as well, so that he has a nice seam down the back of his leg with his pants. And these are going to be like little slouchy ballooned up pants, like bee people wear. Then just sew right down or glue right down that side, fold it over, and we are making another tube. And this is going to be for the legs. And it's going to be a little bit loose because we are going to make them a little bit slouchy. And I'm trying to get some corks that line up good. Okay, then we're just going to put that on in there. And we're going to put a rubber band around the bottom because that's the part that's going to go inside of his shoes. And that'll hold it in his shoes. We're going to do the same thing for both sides. Just glue that side down and glue the other side down, and we're going to make a tube for this leg as well. Same way. Just fold it over and glue it on down, and then finish out that tube. I got this material at Hobby Lobby. It has little bees on it. I thought it was really cute. And then we're going to put our sticks and our corks together, slide that up in there, and then we're going to rubber band that one off as well. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and put them in his shoes. And then we're going to tie his shoes. And when we get it on the noodle, we're just going to make sure we got the rights on the right side and lefts on the lefts. And I already drilled the holes in my noodle. Just kind of randomly space them apart from the center hole. Just kind of evenly, so it's so that they'll stand up good. This was actually really not a very top heavy gnome. It stood up very, very well. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and slouch those pants on down. And I didn't show you on the first leg, but I'm putting a little bit of glue at the top part of that cork, gluing it to the leg, and I'll show you I did it on this one too. I had to go back and do it on the other one. Pull it down, and then just when you get it all the way down flush with the stick at the top, just glue that down so it stays slouched. And I had to go back and do it on that one. Okay, then we're just going to go ahead and cut them down to the cork. And then we're going to attach them. And just push those both in there. And then you're going to glue those little tabs that are on his legs to the noodle. And it will melt the noodle a little bit, but it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to melt it enough to be a game changer. Just push all those tabs all the way around, glue them down. And after I got all these tabs glued down, I thought that it looked a little bit sloppy. So in a minute, you'll see I cut another piece of trim from the fabric, and I put it around him. And you'll see that in a second. Just kind of get them flush so that when you pull that shirt down, you don't have any wrinkles or anything like that in it. And that second piece of fabric that I'm getting ready to put in here really helped smooth that out. Okay, then I pulled that up and I went ahead and got another piece of fabric, trimmed it out, probably about 1.5 inches. And I glued that all the way around. It just made his jacket lay a little bit smoother. Alright, then we're going to go ahead and pull that down, and we are going to build his arms. And I'm just going to take one of these these noodle, hair noodles, and cut it in half. And then just measure, make sure you got them both the same length. We're going to trim up both the short side and one of the long sides, so it has a nice seam on his arms. And we're going to do that for both of them. Okay, then we're going to put a bead in there for his little hand. Glue it in right there. And then put the little noodle there. And then we're just going to roll those up. And we're going to roll them up kind of loosely because we don't want his arm to look real skinny. And then just glue that down. Okay, then we're going to take a rubber band and put it around the end of that just to hold the fabric closed so that noodle doesn't come out. And then we're going to build the other arm. Just put a little bead right there. And then the little roller noodle. Roll it up. And then when we get it rolled up, before we glue it, we're going to make sure they're the same size. And then we're going to glue that side up. And then we'll put a rubber band around the top part too, just to hold that in good. Alright, there's his arms. And we're going to go ahead and do his beard. And we're going to do the beard 3 inches by 3 inches. Just measure 3 by 3. And then we're going to just cut a little U all the way around to the bottom of that line. And up the other side. Cutting only in the back of the fur. Not through the fur, but just through the back of the fur. Okay, once you get that cut off, then you go ahead and comb it out. Get all the excess fur off of it. And throw all that away. Okay, then we're going to put his hat back on his head so we can mark exactly where our beard is going to go. So pull his hat on down over his head. Once you get it flush with the top of the noodle, just take a pin, mark a line in there. And then we're going to put our beard just above that line a little bit because we want that hat to cover that beard up. So we're just going to go above that little line and just glue that in. That way the top part of his beard will be covered up. You won't see it. Alright, once we got that on there, we're going to go ahead and attach his arms. And I'm just putting a little bit of glue at the top part of his arm on both sides. And then I'm going to tie a string around both of them to hold them in good. So I'm marking where I want them. I got them all the way to the top of his hat. But you really don't want his arms going below his shirt. So that's kind of what the gauge I'm using on that. Alright, let that dry real good. And then we're going to tie a string around it. And you don't have to tie our string real tight. Just enough to hold his arms in there. And then we're just going to trim that string off. And we will put his hat back on. And it was a little bit of a challenge getting this hat back on, just to tell you the truth. You're going to have to wiggle it a little bit, but it's pretty sturdy. It's not going to break it. Alright, then we're going to pull up his top and we're going to add his nose. And we're not going to stick his nose up underneath his hat. We're just going to kind of put it right at the brim of the hat. And just glue it in. right in the center. Okay, then we're going to finish his hat off by putting some trim around it. And this is the part where I had to do some modification. You need to cut 2 strips of 3/8 inch by 16 inch foam. And then I came back in because I thought my netting was a little bit long, and so I cut about 1 inch off of it. And I put in the description the size of the net that I used. I used 2 layers. You could use 1 layer or whatever you want. And then I came in here and I started gluing this in, but it was just going to be too hot to hold the back of it all the way around. So I got another strip the same length as this one, same size, and I'm gluing on the net and then sandwiching those together. It just seemed to work a lot easier than burning your fingers. And it made it stand out better. You'll see here in a minute how nicely it stood out. But just put the bottom part of that net into there and then start sandwiching it between. And the glue from one side will hold the other side. And be careful not to get his beard stuck in there too. But you're just putting the bottom part of the net and then sandwiching it together. And we're going to go all the way around. This helps the net from being not stuck to his body. It pulls it away from him a little bit. The only thing that I wish I had done a little bit different, I wish I had put a little bit of a darker nose, because once I got done with this gnome, his nose blended really, really well in there. And I think it could have been just a little bit darker. And then we're going to just trim those off flush with the other side and glue those in. And then I went back in and I added more bees. And you can add whatever you want to it. I just added quite a few because if he's a beekeeper, I'm sure he's probably got a lot of bees around him. And a little bit on the edges of his hat. There you have it. Cute little beekeeper gnome. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see future videos, hit subscribe. If you want to be notified when I have a new video, hit the bell. Thanks for watching.